Good morning.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Am I good enough?
This is good.
Should I
Yeah.
lean up like this?
No, you can relax.
Okay.
Whatever. I think he
Can
can
you hear me?
change
Should I
the
bring it
sound.
closer?
That's perfect. That's good.
Cool.
Hello. I got Brooke Courter on the podcast today.
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
So excited. Thanks for super last minute, but
It's all good.
I've had you on my heart and mind for a while to share things. And I feel like I was mentioning before, I have my cry sponge here. If anyone is watching, they're like, what is this purple thing? I just in case, because this morning has been a tear jerker already. But I just, I feel like you have so much to share. And I was saying before when we were starting, I know nothing. And and I just want to listen and ask questions. But I just want to chat with you as I don't know. I don't want to put it in a box, so we can go anywhere. But let's roll with it. So tell us about yourself. I know, so Brooke was on the podcast a few seasons ago.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
With Casey?
With Casey, yeah.
And you were talking about business a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But today I was like, let's just talk about you and family, hospitality. Something I asked you. Oh yeah. This is just, I was curious.
Yeah, let's talk about it all.
Coming in, when did you get to Ventura? Because I remember you had little babies.
Yes.
But what was that like as a mom? You can talk about Casey too, but mostly I'm just curious about your perspective, coming into a new town with littles and not knowing many people. What was that?
Yeah.
And tell us just a little bit about that.
A lot has happened since
I've
been here last time, a few seasons ago. We were talking about business, and it was Casey and I together, and we were running a business together. And since then, he is continuing to run the business, but I am doing a lot of other things. So it'll be a good recap. But
okay, good.
Yeah, we moved here in 2020, in October, and I was 7 months pregnant. With Caleb.
Oh my God.
And Olivia was 3, I think. Yeah. And so that felt like a completely different season. But the Lord called us here. So it was more of a move of obedience than it was it was a wild adventure for sure. But it wasn't that we didn't plan that much. And
so crazy.
So by the time we felt like the Lord called us here and put Ventura on our hearts, which is a wild story in itself.
Yeah.
And the time we moved into our home, I want to say it was maybe 4 or 5 weeks.
Wow.
It was crazy.
That's
it was a
wild.
whirlwind.
Mm-hmm.
It was so wild, but grace of God, there's no way. Also being very pregnant, and there was a lot of moments where God, did we hear this right?
Well,
I don't know.
I know what they say, the decision making, and when you're pregnant, pregnant brain or something.
Totally.
I don't know, that's hard.
Totally. Well, and then I had another little one running around, and we were really content where we were. There wasn't really a stir, if you will, to leave until there was. Okay. And it was a very abrupt change. And we just kind of went with it. We're like, okay, Lord, we hear you. It was very, very clear. And so we just went for it, and we showed up, and finding a home was its own battle when we were really questioning the call. We're did we hear this right? We can't find a place to stay. Little did we know that he had, the perfect home in mind. And when it was available, it was such a God thing. Yeah. It was so sweet. But moving here with littles was definitely intimidating. Mm-hmm. I love community. Mm-hmm. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that. And I love my people, but at the same time, I'm an introvert, and
that's wild.
I need my time by myself. And so when I moved, it was kind of a bittersweet because we didn't have that community, and it was a lot of alone time, which was good. Yeah, no, it was good, but also we were definitely missing something, and it took us a little while to figure it out and figure out why we were called to Ventura and what we were doing. So it was maybe, I think our first week at Two Trees, Caleb was 3 weeks old, and that was in January of 2021.
I remember that.
Yeah, in the field.
It's fresh.
In the park.
I'll say it was very dry. It was so dry. But yeah, it was the park. Yeah.
But it was so sweet. Our first encounter, I know we're doing these highlights and different things from homecoming.
Oh, right.
like
For the
right,
church
yeah,
videos,
for the church videos, like as we gear up to moving into the warehouse. And so I've been looking through all these old photos and like reflecting of that time recently, actually, and it was sweet. It was so sweet. Like we went through an interesting season of trying to figure out like where we were supposed to plug in when we moved here and find community, not just for myself and for Casey, but also for our kids. Like who our kids were little, like who do we want to raise our kids with? And that's a big deal.
Who was like the first people you met or like really clicked with in the community, or like
the Dailies?
Yeah, I thought so.
We ended up coming to Two Trees around the same time.
So
we actually met in like a neighborhood community group that wasn't part of Two Trees.
Oh wow!
And we ended up at Two Trees the same Sunday morning, and was like,
what up?
And Sol and Olivia they don't look like twins
daughters
anymore, but they looked like twins. They had the same hair, they were the same height. Everything was this, like they were little twins. It was so funny. Cute. So it was a sweet season. But yeah, Caleb was 3 weeks old.
So
he's like my little timeline.
How did you? Yeah, right. Because that's when you got here. Oh my gosh, I remember he was so fresh. I was like, "How are you out right now? What are you doing?"
We were really desperate for community. We're like, we got to find it, because the call here was so strong and so clear. It was like almost an audible voice. Like it was just a very loud knocking. We had no doubt that we were supposed to be here. And then we got here and it was like crickets. And we're like,
isn't that interesting?
Okay, like what's next? Like what's next, Lord? Like we're waiting.
You're like, okay.
So I know it sounds really soon, like when Caleb was 3 weeks old, but when he was born, I was like, I gotta find some people.
Yeah. Like, oh no, that's great. Hey, if you can do it, that's awesome. Yeah, I feel like I'm not there, but I feel like there's no like right or wrong way to do it.
Yeah, figured it out.
Well, how did you? Okay, so if you haven't heard the last episode, I would say go backwards and check it out. When we were talking about Sun Dream.
Yep.
But how did you go? I just want to hear also about Harbor House. How did you get there? And I know, like you do have a value. I feel like the thread throughout is like community and hospitality. That's what I see. But we also, Brooke just had a birthday. Happy birthday!
Thank you.
And we got to like share a little bit or like just love on you a little bit. And everyone was saying something so similar. I just feel like it's so evident that people who like you see people. And you're so good at pulling them in and like loving them. But yeah, how did you get to Harbor House? Like, I don't know. Want to share something?
Yeah, sure.
Because she's okay. Brooke's a visionary for sure, and like, but a doer. You are a doer, like an implementer. Like you have a vision, but you do.
Yeah.
I don't know of too many that have both.
Interesting. Okay.
I feel like I don't.
Yeah, I don't feel like I ever really separated the two. I mean, I feel like when the Lord like puts something on your heart or in your mind or gives you a vision, it's your turn.
Yeah.
There's a partnership there. It's not just like,
okay,
like that's a cool thought, God. Like, sweet. I'll save that for next time. You gotta, then he wants that partnership. Like there's a next step.
Yeah.
And it's
action.
Absolutely.
Was that
and obedience.
Was it something that was like in your heart for a long time that you were like praying into, or was it like
for Harbor House?
Yeah. What is Harbor House? Maybe share what is Harbor House.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Harbor House is confusing. Is
it?
I mean, yes and no. It's we know what we're doing. I think like we haven't talked about it a whole lot, like on video or in the public. So I don't know that a lot of people know what we're doing, but we're basically, to simplify it, we're a hybrid homeschool program.
Cool.
So it's kind of like a little micro school. We cover some subjects. We don't cover them all. We take the load off of homeschooling families to do the whole thing.
That's cool.
And mainly we're a community. We're a little micro school where it's really sweet. We talk about Jesus a lot, and in and out of like the chapel, we want to teach them to find Jesus in science and to find Jesus in history and all of those things, find Jesus in art and in nature and just outside of the box of church.
I love that.
We also have like chapel and church and do that too. And it's wonderful. But yeah, so we are a community of homeschool families who we have teachers and moms as teachers, and we take over subjects, and we cover about half of the core subjects that are required by the state. And
things
it's
like
a little
so
school.
creative.
It's
I'm
so
like, oh
fun.
my gosh, look
it's
at you
all
doing that.
it's all project based. It's not like We don't do worksheets or like anything like that. It's everything is a project.
That's cool.
So like right now I'm teaching geography and world history for the 1st through 3rd graders, and we're in China, and they're learning how to read a map and use a compass, and we're cooking food from China, and we're doing crafts and things that they do, and
cool.
It's just sweet, like introducing them to different cultures and worldview.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Which I am very passionate about and love.
Yeah.
So people think differently than we do, and live differently than we do. So
that's so helpful, especially in the United States too, because so many people are here from different backgrounds, and that we are different. Also, to see that your neighbor is like learn about
absolutely,
them.
absolutely. So the way we got started. Let's see. Again, just the Lord. Just the Lord. He's so good.
You're so bold.
It was gradual and not all at the same time. I don't know. It was there was a moment where Olivia, my oldest, was getting ready to go to kindergarten, and I had thought that I knew where she was going to go. I never really gave it much thought.
Yeah.
I was a public school kid. Well, my kids were going to be public school kids. It was whatever. I don't know. I had never thought about it before, like, in all honesty.
Whoa.
And it was like next steps. I was still working at Sundream with my husband. We were running a business. School was convenient because I could drop my kids off.
Definitely.
You know, like, and work. And I just had this hesitancy. Like, I was just like, okay, like when it came time for enrolling, it just didn't feel right.
Whoa.
And
oh my gosh.
Like I'm like, okay, so what do I do? Like, what do I look into? And thank goodness there's like tons of options, but even with all the options that we have, nothing sat right.
Yeah.
I don't know. It didn't feel like there was an open door for us.
Whoa.
And so I kind of just sat on it for a minute. I had slowly months prior. It's so funny how the Lord works and like how you can reflect back and see what was happening.
I love that.
But I could see the Lord pulling me back out of Sundream. I was like maybe 8 or so months prior. I had like started training Casey to do like my side of the business, and I felt that like pull, and I didn't know what it was going to propel me into, but I was obedient in that pull and allowed that to be a really gradual transition.
Y'all hear that? That's a free nugget. Someone needs to hear that right now. So like feeling like positioning yourself,
which is wild because I don't think it takes away from the call that we had on Sundream. Like the Lord like promised that and like called us into that, and I was obedient in that season. But if you're constantly surrendering those promises and those things that the Lord has for you back over to him, then you'll know when it's time for a change.
Oh my gosh.
You know, and my husband's still doing it and still running it, and it's still his season, but it wasn't mine. And so I pulled back, and again, I kind of sat there. It almost felt like a little bit of the waiting season when we moved to Ventura. Like, now what?
There's
like, I'm out.
Shifting.
Like, there's something shifting, but now what? And it's hard in that season to not just shove yourself into something else.
Totally.
You know, like to fill the space and fill the quiet. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like,
it's got to be this.
I'm a pretty active, like, or I should say proactive person in like my life. And it felt, it's hard to wait. Yeah. And it's hard to be patient and not like insert your own, you know, whatever you want to do. X, Y, Z.
Ishmael.
Totally. Yeah. Literally.
I like always like, let me just handle it on my own.
Yeah, totally. Like, okay, I was obedient. I'm out now. So what do I do? And it was just a waiting season.
Whoa.
And then that all happened when I was supposed to be enrolling Olivia in kindergarten, and it never happened. I was like, I just can't do it. I don't know why it's that big of a decision. It's kindergarten, like, you know, we're doing crafts.
How did Casey respond with that? Was he like, I trust you?
Yeah. He had his own opinions for sure, and we talked about it a lot. But at the end of the day, he was working, and he knew that I had the kids, and he allowed me to make that decision.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, we just kind of waited, and then all of a sudden, actually, it wasn't like he put homeschooling on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
He actually put a person on my mind who was acquaintance at the time.
Oh, he's so people oriented.
I know. My partner in crime, Brooke Courter.
Oh, it's so good. I have chills. I already know this story. I'm like, whoa.
It was sweet. And she had been on my mind for a little while. We were acquaintances at that point.
Yeah.
We'd hung out a few times with other groups of people, but hadn't really like gotten to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then I texted her. I knew that she was homeschooling. She has kids at a similar age. And I texted her and I was like, hey, like, I'm having a hard time. I was just like really vulnerable. I was like, I know you don't really know me, but,
but she can handle that.
I'm like, I'm having a really hard time with like figuring out school stuff. Like, can I pick your brain and understand where you're at and what your day-to-day looks like to see if it's something that I can do?
Yeah.
And we went to a park and we just hung out, and it was like we just kept hanging out and we became really close.
Yeah.
And we were praying together and talking together and typing together. I know it sounds really funny, but we were literally like, it is wild how Harbor House came. It was not an idea that we had.
But I feel like this is so beautiful that you weren't forcing something.
No.
You were just in relationship with somebody.
If it was up to us, the easiest thing that we could have done was just hang out together, cover some subjects for each other, school our kids together in a little group, have lots of play dates, and keep the flexibility.
Yeah.
But that's not what the Lord had for us. And we would literally go over to her house or my house, and the kids would be playing, and we'd be like, and what about this? And what about this? And we'd just like be typing it up. And then seriously, it was so crazy. Whoa. It was just like downloading. The Lord was just downloading all these ideas. Good. And about 7 months, maybe 6 months into it, I felt like we had this like 20-page plan.
Oh my gosh.
Of like this little micro school, and we're like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
You got in or too far.
This is crazy.
You can't go back.
So this is maybe like May. This is in May of.
Oh my gosh.
What year is it?
2022? 2023?
Yeah. I think it was 2022. Last year was our first year. 2023. 22.
I don't know. It's all a blur. Everyone knows it's a blur.
You know what I'm talking about. And we just had this plan, but we didn't know how to execute it then. Now it was like, okay, like we have this idea and this would be cool in retrospect, but how are we actually supposed to do this? Like, do we just open up one of our homes? Do we see if other people want to like
location
join in? And we brought, the idea to Brad, and we're like, hey, like, we had this crazy experience and we came up with this idea. Can we rent a room, like a singular room from the church?
Gosh, you bring it to Brad. He's like he grabs a match and lights it.
I love it. It's so good.
Yeah.
And I was like, can we rent a room to, like make into a homeschool room, if you will? Invite other families in, have a little community, support each other. And it just took off from there. He's like, so generous. Yes. It was so sweet. No, he's like, you don't have to rent a room. Like, you can have the whole place. Oh. And it was like,
because we got a building at that same season. We had been given the Avenue Community Church building. Yeah. And we're like, what are we gonna do here? Like, and we were meeting there on Sundays right now before this building. Yeah. Before this building is done. Yeah. And so it was like, oh my gosh, perfect. We have space.
So wild. And
then they transformed the
totally.
Food hall.
yeah. We're like, well,
it looks so good.
We went on a tour of the place and we're overwhelmed. Like, now it's funny because we use every space, every nook and cranny, and we're always looking at ways to like expand. That. But at the time, we're like, this is really generous. Yeah. And really overwhelming.
Whoa.
Like, how are we supposed to fill this space? Yeah. Like, we have 5 kids between us.
You guys are filling it.
And but we made room, and we spent the whole summer clearing out that food hall.
We did.
And just
and
just making it used and making it. You knew there's a lot of dust in there for sure, but it was sweet. It was like such a fun way to start, and we were clearing and we were making space and we were praying. And there's something about like physically clearing a room and making space for
it's like tilling the ground or preparing something.
It was a hard summer, and honestly one of the most fond and sweet summers.
Wait, so that was May.
Mm-hmm.
That summer you prepped,
and then we started school in August.
Yeah,
it was crazy. It was insane. We're like, we're starting like essentially like a school. Like we started, we're like, yeah, let's hang out in the living room and like homeschool our
la, la, la.
yeah, kumbaya. No. And it was like, no, here's a bunch of families that also need community and need support and need help. And like, okay, here we go. So yeah.
Wow.
Now we're in our second year, so we're still babies. We're
You
still
guys are
learning
so
every day.
Cute. I was driving on the avenue, like by what's that park?
Kellogg.
Yeah. And I see Carissa.
Oh my gosh, she's
and
the best.
her class, and they're like all holding the rope to go
So
across the
sweet.
street, and I'm like,
it's incredible how many people have like jumped in with us. And it's just, I mean, so the Lord, there's nothing Bree and I could not have done this on our own. We just couldn't. There's absolutely no way. There's so many moving parts to this, and it really has taken a village. And to all the people that have just jumped in with us, it's like, you're seen.
You real. Okay, so my question is, how do you balance that with home or balance that in anything? Like, and it doesn't, maybe not necessarily even Harbor House, but like any business, I guess you can't speak to everybody's, but for you guys, like, how do you do that? And because I guess it's like you would be doing that at home with your children anyway, maybe?
Yeah.
Like you were saying in the living room, but yeah, I don't know. It's all new it's different for me. How do you run something and have time for friends and
totally? I think you make time for what you prioritize. You know, you just do. You just do. I think when you become a mom, you learn how to multitask pretty well.
Yeah.
But also when God has a calling for you, he gives you the grace to execute it.
Oof.
And
do you hear that? Listen up.
Yeah, it's not in our own strength, because on paper it doesn't feel like we should be able to have family time and have like a healthy family, I should say, and be running a school and, you know, have a business and doing all these things and still have time for people and ministry and whatever it is that the Lord's calling you into. But with God, and he just gives you the grace for your season.
I feel that,
you know, and you have to sink into it a little bit and just allow your capacity to expand. I think like sometimes he gives us the capacity and then we like clench up in fear because we don't know how we're going to execute it. And that's not the point. You know, just give into it and say yes. Of course, you know, have some boundaries, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yes, right? How do
boundaries are an interesting topic for sure. Yeah.
How do you know the difference between, I guess it's kind of about boundaries, but for those that are asking, like, how do you know when it's God expanding something and he's giving you the grace for it? I kind of already, I'm asking like, I don't know everything. Versus like just saying yes to everything and being exhausted and burned out. You know, like, oh, all of these things he's blessing me with, they're falling into my lap. So yes, but it's not, his breath isn't maybe on it and you're exhausted versus like him expanding something and showing you, say yes, you know? Do you know what I mean?
I do. I
don't know if there's a difference or if it's just saying no to the things you know you need to say no to, or.
That's a great question. I feel like for me in my life, just prioritizing is huge. And being in prayer, you have to listen too. You can't just like, you know, you can walk and listen, but you got to listen. And you have to be okay with changing your mind.
Oh,
and like changing your season. Like God gives you promises, but he can also take them away. And that's not like a punishment. That's not, it's just, you have to go and shift.
Like be able to let go of things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because say we have like something for us in this season and we're holding on tight, we like white knuckle those things, but it's like, you have to allow it to, you have to hold it loosely.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe he has a change for you and we just are so like, no, he said this, like, this is the promise he has for me and I'm going to stick with it. And it's like, you know, there is some endurance for sure that you have to like keep going. But if the Lord is calling you out of something, it's, you know, you have to move with him because he's the one who gave you the promise in the first place. It's not yours to control.
Like, trust him. He's going to do what he's going to do.
And do it again.
And better
and again,
for you.
And again and again.
Yeah.
And you just, you know, like keep saying, yes, he's a good God and he's a good leader and you can trust him and you can allow him to walk before you and know that when he takes a turn on a path, you can follow him there. And
let go of
just
control.
go. Yeah, absolutely.
I love what you said about listening.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to just listen to him, walk with him, listen.
Busyness doesn't allow us to listen. It's like you got to actually slow down, you know?
So good. I feel like people need to like tune in. Repeat this right now. No, this is me. I'm like, this is so good. So I guess you hear it because the word you keep saying, prioritize, priority. And I would like to know like what that looks like for you and like what, how do you know? I guess it's different for everybody.
Sure.
But intentionality is a word that I think of when I think of you.
Oh,
being
you.
intentional.
So
yeah,
sweet.
like with your time, because I guess it has to do with prioritizing. Like if I said I'm going to be with you, I'm going to be with you and give you that time. And I feel like you do that really well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a question in there.
No, I am following.
Just talk about it.
I feel like
You can
that's
talk about
something I've
anything.
had to work on.
Okay. Oh,
for
okay.
sure. I adapt well to change, and I have my whole life. My childhood was full of change, and I feel like it taught me resiliency, and it taught me how to, you know, adapt quickly and find my place and change, which is, you know, it was hard, but it was like, it's a beautiful gift that came out of it. At the same time, I think when I was a young adult, like I could be really flighty in that. So it was like always, like you're saying, like we're following the Lord, right? He takes turns, there's different callings, different seasons, all of those things, and saying yes to them. But I think when I was younger, I became a Christian when I was 22. I gave my life to the Lord. And during those next few like really zealous like young adult years, you know, like getting saved and just being on that journey, I was also very flighty and always looking to the next thing. Well, God did this awesome thing, and it's a beautiful faith, but it can also be very fleeting. It's not a steadfast faith. And I was just like, well, he's going to do this, and I want to be over here, and I want to travel here. And it was just very like go with the wind. And there's a part of that you have to keep. But there's also this like soft breeze that you have to learn how to feel too, and slow down to feel it. So I think, hopefully, I think I'm still working on it.
Does it like have to do with being present somewhere too? Like rooting? Or is it like, it doesn't matter where?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I think the Lord really calls us into just seeking his face and slowing down and just, slow down. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to like, people are like, oh, I have to sit and not move.
Right.
And it's like,
no,
you can be proactive and still be listening.
Yeah.
And
something with me, like on that, I guess, topic is when I remember growing up in school, well, not in school, but in a youth group, it was like we would try to listen and listen to the Lord and meditate. They didn't use the word meditate, but
sure.
Like listen to him. And they're like, everything, just if it's coming into your brain, just push it away. Just push it away. Just ask God, take it away. And like, I learned over the years that it's actually okay to like, you said something about it's not necessarily just not, I think slowing down, or you said something that's just reminding me of this. Like, in the mind too, like, okay, God, this is coming to my mind. What is this? And asking him, that's prayer.
Totally.
And instead of pushing things away, and like in a busyness, in a busy life, like you said, it's not just like sitting there, like
it can be,
but it's sometimes active, but like it's listening. And
what kind of brings you into like family life? Like when I was that age, I was also, you know, I was young and newly married. Casey and I married when we were 24, 25.
Oh my gosh. You have to, after your thought, share that. Can you share some of your story?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just for people that are needing some hope.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. But
and we had all the time. And we met in a ministry setting and a mission setting where we had time for those silent moments where I just sat there. I just sat with the Lord. It was such a sweet season. It was so beautiful.
You're like set apart season.
Yes.
Set for this.
Absolutely.
Like I'm set apart to seek you.
So much intentionality, so much intimacy with the Lord, and just as like wild and like as we were just like moving around, it was also like a really slow season. We thought we were busy. We weren't busy. We had nothing.
You don't know busy with kids and work and
yeah. And then I had kids, and all of a sudden I was like, whoa, like where'd my peaceful moments go? Where'd my quiet, intimate moments with the Lord go? And it shook me for a minute.
What did you do? How did you find those moments still as a new mom? And
that's a great question. The Lord taught me how to seek him in the mundane.
Yeah.
And in the day-to-day, and in the sleepless nights, and the loads of dishes and laundry and everything else. And I think we often think of those things as a burden or a sacrifice. We say it's a sacrifice to become a parent. It's worship. It's beautiful. And in those moments, in those like low moments where it feels like it's a low moment, you know, you're like, I used to be able to, you know, pour my hot cup of coffee. I didn't have a hot cup of coffee for years.
That's real. I've seen that.
You know, I used to have a hot cup of coffee and wake up and watch the sunrise and journal and read scripture and
rude awakening,
all of these things. And it was so beautiful, but it builds a resiliency. I think there's a season like that for a reason. And it's so incredible when people actually get to experience God as a young adult without other responsibilities. I think it gives an incredible start.
It's very concentrated.
Life. It's beautiful.
Versus like then later in life, it can be like using different senses. I see it as like he's training us, or training for you as motherhood, training us to use our different senses to find him and hear him, like seeing him in a different way than before. And it's like, I know for me, I'm not a mom, but like in seasons where he's training me to use my senses differently, I'm like, I can't hear you. Are you here?
You
what did
totally,
I do?
Like, where'd you go? You abandoned me.
So dramatic.
But
it doesn't sound like that, but on the inside, it's like a dark night thing, and it's like he's training.
I'm not getting my time because I don't have my morning routine.
Yeah,
you know, it's just flipped over.
So different.
And you learn in that season, you know, for any new moms out there, like you learn in that season to find peace, and you feel his presence and you feel his touch and his hug and his encouragement. And you know, like I heard someone say, every time I like fold laundry, I pray for that child, or I pray for my husband, or what it is. And I'm like, it's so sweet. Like there can be so much intentionality in what you do.
Yeah.
And
that's so good.
And like those sleepless nights, like it feels like it's gonna last forever, but it won't. And sometimes the night can be the most intimate time of prayer and connection with our Father.
That's
you know,
so good.
And when we're crying and we're awake, he's not like, go to sleep.
Right.
Like he doesn't do that to us.
Whoa,
he holds us and loves us. I know. It's so sweet. Right. So just passing that on and teaching them the Father's love. And I think while you practice that, you learn so much about his love for us.
Can you have eyes to see?
I had no idea like how much he nurtured us and like how patient he is with us and like all those things until I had kids. And then
the father.
It's so sweet. And in those young years, I think it's really, really important. You build resiliency. You learn how to find joy and purpose in the mundane things. And it becomes such a joy. But then you go into the next season and your kids get a little bit older. And I think for those new moms, that is really, really important. But I think moms can stay there.
Okay. Yeah.
And they can stay in that like frantic state of not having time for Jesus. And I think that is a hard reality for a lot of people.
Like, what does it look like for you, or what transition?
I think it goes back to priorities.
Okay.
And you
That's a word.
Yeah. It's, you make room for what you want to do. Like, people do what they want to do. At the end of the day, you can have a lot of ideas, you can have a heart for something, but you will always make time for something that you genuinely care about, or someone you genuinely care about. You just do. And there gets a season in parenthood where you have a little bit more of that free time and more of that capacity. And even if it's in that in between and you're like, oh, I don't know. Like, there was a season where I would open up my Bible and literally like read one word and someone would be screaming. I'm like, okay, well, at least I tried.
Yeah. But you did. That's the act of trying. Yeah.
But it's, a discipline, and disciplines change habits, and they change your heart, and you can continue to do that and make time. And it looked like talking to my husband and being like, okay, I need this time with Jesus. Ooh. I can't just do it while I'm doing laundry and manure.
Yeah.
I can't just do it while I can sneak away, or while they're napping or whatever. Like,
something shifted.
Yeah. I need my time. Or I'll set up my kids with an activity structure. And I'm like, Mom's going in the bedroom and I'm closing the door.
But you're teaching them too that you are doing this, and
yes,
that, like,
and it's a priority.
Like, kind of about a boundary, but it's beautiful. Well, you're showing them that it's important.
Absolutely. And they watch you.
Yeah.
And they watch everything that you do. And so knowing that their mom is prioritizing reading scripture and prioritizing spending time with the Lord is important.
That's good.
Because if they just see you running around and taking care of them, they don't know what you're praying in your mind. Yeah. They don't know, like, you're worshiping as you're doing dishes. Like, those are beautiful things, and you have to learn how to do them, especially in that beginning season. But there gets a point where I think it becomes an excuse.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I worship in the car on my way to something. Good. Do that. Good. But also go back to your secret place. Go back and have that time and prioritize it. Yeah. Because just like you're prioritizing your kids, like, he loves you and you're his child, and he wants to spend time with you too. And you're going to parent so much better, and you're going to be a better friend and a better wife and a better everything, when you spend time with him. And don't make excuses anymore. Just do it. Just do it.
That's so good.
It doesn't have to be like, I don't know that until my kids are, older. I don't know that I'm going to have that time, like, in my young adult time where I'm like, I have like 3-hour mornings to do my thing.
Maybe when you're retired.
Yeah, maybe. But I can start small.
Yeah.
And I can start with 5 minutes and then go to 10 minutes and go to 20 minutes, and I can carve out time and make time. And, as you do it, habits change your heart, and it makes you passionate about it, and you want to do it. And it's important to get there too.
I think that's so good to hear. And that applies, like, people can grab things, whatever season, or whatever they're doing in life. I feel like there's so much in that, even for me. But I think that's so good to hear. Like, hey, something shifted. Like, see it, and maybe that takes some planning. Planning your maybe they wake up early. Like, maybe there's something to do to make that happen.
Make time for it. Whether it's like getting help or waking up early, or setting up some activity for your kids, or doing it in the car when they're at soccer practice, or whatever it is.
That's good. I need more time with you. I feel like Brooke could talk forever. I'm just like, please share with me your wisdom. And
sweet.
Even when you're like, I'm figuring it out, I still don't know.
Absolutely. I hope I'm always figuring it out. I never want to feel like I arrive, right? Always learning.
So how did you and Casey meet? Just for, like, how did that happen? You don't have to share the whole thing, but I know it's a really fun story.
Yeah. We met in Hawaii. We were at a ministry school, and we just met, and we knew we were going to be married.
That's the thing. Okay, what?
It was wild.
That's not for everybody. But.
No, it's not. But it really spoke to me, because I came from a very different background. I was maybe only saved for a year or two at that point in time. I hadn't had a relationship, like, as a Christian. And I was very slow to trust.
Okay.
And I always was like, I'm going to find someone and slowly build a friendship and slowly build, you know, like a relationship with them. And then I'll consider marriage. I was always like this really long thing. Like, you have to earn my trust type of like mentality.
I feel that.
And the Lord said, haha.
Yeah, we're going to do it differently for y'all.
And yeah, so we met and we knew we were going to get married. We didn't say anything to each other for a few weeks. And then we were actually studying for like a Bible test.
Whoa.
So silly. But it was a sweet season. And
that's funny.
You
studied together for the Bible test?
Well, we were at the same table.
Same table. You might be at their table.
And he looked at me and he said, "You're the woman I've been praying for." And it was so sweet. And I said, "I know."
Oh. You're like, ta-da!
Because the Lord had also revealed to me
Whoa.
that like he was my husband. And obviously you don't want to be like, the Lord told me. That can get weird. That gets weird. Don't do that. Everyone who's listening, don't do that. But yeah, he had revealed to him.
Am I delusional or is this the Lord?
Totally. And it was more of my prayers of like, if this is just me, if this is just my flesh, take this away. Like, we're here to be closer to you. Like, we were at a school for that, like for Jesus, not for each other. And it sounds so silly, but like, you know, the Lord just blessed that. And it's been a theme in our marriage where he talks to both of us separately and then we come together and it's a I know moment. It's like a confirming moment.
Do you usually know before he knows? Or like, do you not know?
I mean, I don't know because we don't know that each other knows until we have the conversation. And it's always an I know. It's how we met. We were married. We were still young. We were like, he was 22, I think, when we met. And so we dated. We committed to each other.
Oh my gosh.
Knowing that we were going to get married and just got to know each other along the way. We committed first, figured it out later. That's always been our thing. And we got married about 2 years later. We had like a 6-month engagement, and which is like short for some and long for others. You know, people can get married really quick. And then everything since then has kind of been the same. It's been with business. It's been the Lord's been speaking to me. The Lord's been speaking to Casey. We come together. We're like, I feel like we should start this. Oh my gosh, me too. My heart's been stirring.
Yeah.
How we got to Ventura, super crazy.
Same thing.
I just had this word from the Lord and I was like, what is this? Like, This is really interesting. And I was just getting wrecked. And I went downstairs one day and I was like, Casey, I got to talk to you. Like, I know this is going to seem out of the blue, which obviously it wasn't, but I was like, I didn't know that he knew, but I feel like the Lord is telling us to move to Ventura. And it was I know. I'm like, are you serious? Like, it is so wild. Yeah. And it's just been a theme in our relationship with the move, with coming to Two Trees, with everything that we've done. And the Lord is so consistent.
I love that.
And and it's just such a theme in our relationship. That's so it's sweet. Really sweet.
I heard that you shared at the a women's gathering at your house.
Oh yeah.
That's actually when I was like, oh, you got to share that somewhere. So because you were sharing about how you met, but also kind of how God has been confirming things for you guys, and it's really sweet.
Yeah.
Is there next season, like, what's on your mind and hearts? Or like you've mentioned, like, to me, being present and just enjoying, but like, is there anything that, I don't know, it doesn't have to be business, but what's God doing for you guys in this next season?
I don't know that I can speak to it.
Honestly, I love it.
I like, tell the Lord your plans, right? I think it's really important to, make plans and do those things. But for me in this season, I don't feel like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I am doing a lot of listening, and I'm just moving with where God wants me. And if that means like something happens tomorrow and I have to jump ship, then like, it is what it is. But I think it's just about walking in obedience and continually inviting Holy Spirit into your every step and every move and every decision, and allowing
release it.
him to
Release that.
guide relationships and people that come in and out of your life and seasons and all of those things. So who knows?
Okay. I feel
it's an exciting
like
adventure.
There's something on what she's saying for people listening. Like, you're like, oh, that sounds so good, or that sounds impossible, or if only, or like, I don't know what people are thinking listening, but just to like, you have a settling about you, and maybe it's like an acceptance and like a surrender, and
it's a surrendered life.
So can you
It's
just
like,
pray that out? Like,
absolutely.
You don't have to you can pray if you want, but like, people need to like something. You have something to release.
All right. Yeah. Let's do it. Lord, I just thank you for this moment. God, what Moriah was saying about just being settled, I pray that everyone that is listening can just sink into your presence and just be rooted and grounded in where they are. We live such a wild adventure, and trusting you and not making grandiose plans is the most adventurous thing we could do. You take us on a wild ride. The journey with you is so, so, so fun. And I just pray that everyone that is listening can trust you and can lean into you, and to know that their next steps are orchestrated by you, and they can just trust in that steps. They don't have to hold on to it. Just release it. Just guide our path, Lord. Amen.
Thank you. You have so much to share. I'm so glad you were able to come on.
Thanks for having me.
Seriously, there's so much. I'm like, guys, rewind and re-listen and replay, because so good. Just like so settled.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. All right. Out to the school.
Out to school. I got to go to school now.
Okay, well, guys, thanks for tuning in. Have a good day.